a small silence that walks beside you all day. You do not notice it until you lose something. What you think you have lost is time, or focus, or energy. What you have actually lost is the habit of resting in the space between. Imagine a bell in an empty hall. The sound rings, then fades. Most people hurry to fill the fading with another sound, another task, another worry. But what if the bell's quiet? The very absence after the tone is where the bell does its work. Stay with that thought for a moment. If you'd like more talks like this, please subscribe. Long ago, a young seeker came to a monk and said, "I cannot be still. My mind is like a crowded marketplace. I try to meditate, but thoughts push and shout." The monk smiled and led him to a riverbank. They sat. The monk scooped a bowl, placed it in the water and said, "Watch." The bowl filled, spilled, filled again. After a while, the seeker asked, "What is the practice?" The monk answered, "It is to notice the water as it moves in and as it moves out." We love movement. Movement makes us feel alive. It gives us measurable progress. Email sent, steps walked, ideas finished. Movement is visible, like the bowl filling. But there is another kind of movement that asks nothing from us but attention. The pause as the water leaves the bowl. No one applauds the leaving. Yet without the leaving, there would be no room for new water. This is not about stopping your life. It is about discovering the usefulness of small interruptions. The place between one breath and the next. The micro moment after you close your laptop and before your mind jumps to dinner. The 3 seconds after your child falls asleep and before your shoulders untighten. In those seconds, something vital happens if you let it. A realignment. A small return to yourself. I want to tell you a small story about a cracked teapot. There was a teapot that would leak. The owner tried to seal it, to patch it, to hide the crack. One day a visitor noticed the leak and said, "Why not make it into a garden?" So the owner placed tiny moss and small flowers where the water fell. The teapot's floor became the source of a new green. The problem had not been the crack, but the effort to never let it be anything other than what it was. We are like that teapot. We leak attention. We drop thoughts, forget names, lose patience. We hide the cracks with busyness, telling ourselves that if we move fast enough, the leak will not be seen. But the leak can create a small garden, a place to notice, to rest, to breathe. You may be wondering, what is the actual practice? How do I tend a garden that exists in my not doing? Hold that question like you would hold a seed. I will return to it. For now, watch how the story draws you in and leaves a space for something to unfold. There is an old technique that monks use when a mind is unruly. It is not complicated. It consists of 3 small acts: noticing, returning, and receiving. Notice when your attention has wandered. That is the first act. Return gently to the present. That is the second. Receive whatever is there without judgment. That is the third. Notice, return, receive. 3 small stones you can carry in your pocket. We live in an age that confuses productivity with worth. A phone buzzing becomes proof that we are important. An overflowing calendar becomes a crown, but a crown made of tasks weighs us down. The quiet is not absence of value, it is the source of value. In the space between actions, you can hear the tone of your own heart. You can remember what you care about. You can choose again, not from habit, but from clarity. A student once told me, "When I pause, I feel guilty. I feel as if I must be fixing, earning, proving." That guilt is a story learned long ago. It is not truth, it is habit. The truth is gentler. Pausing allows us to reset the nervous system. It is a small revolution for your body. The body prefers rhythm to frenzy. rhythm requires pauses. The heart does not simply race, it beats and rests. Breath flows in and then out. If we honor that pattern in the smallest ways, everything changes. If this touched you, leave a single word in the comments. One small seed for the garden we are making together. I will tell you another story, because stories are like nets that catch meaning. Once, a teacher set a challenge. She asked her students to find one heavy stone on the path and carry it for a day. Some students complained, others laughed. One student chose a small pebble and slipped it into his pocket without thinking. He walked and worked, and at the end of the day he noticed the pebble warm against his skin. It had not been heavy at all. Its quiet presence had kept him company. The practice was not the weight, but the awareness. The point here is gentle. Choose small practices that invite presence, not grand vows, not extensive rituals that will become another obligation. Tiny, repeatable acts. A breath before you answer an email. A pause between one task and the next. A 5-minute walk without a phone. Each of these is like watering the moss by the teapot. There is a deeper truth that we have not yet spoken. It waits like a guest in another room. But first, I invite you to do something simple. Now pause the video and take 3 slow, full breaths. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, breathe out for 5. Notice the space at the top of the inhale and the space at the bottom of the exhale. When you are ready, come back. You returned. Good. You practiced a tiny interruption that matters far more than you might believe. Each time you do that, you are training the mind to recognize the gap. The gap is the doorway. Some teachers point to a single sentence that changes everything. The sentence is not complicated, it is. Attend to the gap. That sounds simple. It is simple because it is true. But the surprising part is what that gap holds. It holds not only silence but choice. When you attend to the small pause, you can choose kindness instead of reaction. You can choose rest instead of guilt. You can choose to respond to your life rather than be swept by it. Here is an image to hold. 2 travelers walking side by side. One drags a sack of stones, each stone a worry, a regret, an unspoken fear. The other rests her sack now and then, feeling lighter with each pause. Both walk the same path. Which one reaches the village with a smile? The one who takes breaks. The village is within you. Pauses are the little bridges that let you cross to it. Now we come to the point I have been circling. All this time you may have thought the goal was to accumulate calm, to polish yourself into some better version. The hidden truth is different. Peace is not a thing you add. It is the space that appears when you stop piling on. The main practice is the art of making room. Make room for a moment to let a thought pass without following it. Make room for a moment to let your hands rest before you move them. Make room for a moment to observe the tone of your voice when you speak. Make room repeatedly. The gap will teach you not by force but by invitation. There is a strange economics to attention. The less you hoard, the more you have. The more you allow pauses, the fuller your presence becomes. This is not paradox but practice. It is the wild economics of the heart. A final small parable. A village had no clock. People lived by the sun and by the slow habits of work and food. One day a clockmaker arrived and sold everyone tiny pocket watches. They were thrilled. Time became measurable in precise ticks. For a while life ran smoothly. Then children stopped playing between chores. People measured their smiles. After some years, the village seemed exact but worn. A wise elder removed his watch and said, "We have traded the music of life for the metronome of duty." A few people followed him. They did not abandon the watch entirely, but they learned to let it fall silent sometimes. They called these silences breath intervals. In those intervals, the village remembered why it had been born. This is the reveal I promised. The practice you seek is not a special posture or a long retreat. It is the willingness to honor the tiny breaks that exist already. The gap, the short conscious pause, is the teacher, the healer, the doorway. It is where attention meets freedom. It is where anxiety dissolves enough for clarity to appear. It is where love can arrive simply because there is space for it. How to begin tomorrow? Choose 2 moments you already do. Maybe waking and making coffee. Maybe finishing a meeting. Decide to take 1 breath, to notice the space, to acknowledge it aloud if that helps. This is a pause. Do it for 10 days. 10 small pauses will weave a new habit. 10 pauses are not much in the ledger of a life, yet they can change the direction of a day. When you fail, as you will, be kind. Habit is taught by repetition, not punishment. Notice the failure. Return to the pause. Offer yourself the same mercy you would a friend. The gap receives our shame as well as our joy. It is a safe place. There is one last thing I want to offer before we close. If you can, for the next week, try this. Before you answer anything that asks you to move, a message, a request, an impulse, take 1 breath. That simple breath will ask, is this necessary? Is this kind? Is this mine? It will not solve every problem, but it will reduce the number of reactive steps you take. It will teach your nervous system that there is a field between stimulus and response, a field where choice resides. If this mattered to you, consider subscribing to walk more of this path together. We return now to the bell in the empty hall. The sound rings, it fades. You do not rush to fill the quiet. You listen. You let the silence do its work. In that silence, you remember the shape of your own presence. The world will not break if you pause. The world will change gently and quietly because you did. May you learn the ease of the gap. May your days be stitched with small silences that grow into gardens. When you feel hurried or lost, come back to the bowl, to the teapot, to the pebble in the pocket. Notice, return, receive, breathe. The rest unfolds from there. Go slowly. Be kind to yourself. And when the bell rings again, let the silence have its song.
Take care of your body. It is the only home you will have in this life. If these words brought you clarity, walk this path with me.